Hey guys, welcome back to the Speaker's Edge podcast, the podcast designed to help you to learn from some of the world's very best speakers so that you can master your message and inspire your audience every single time you speak. I'm your host for this podcast, Roddy Galbraith, and I'm delighted that you've chosen to join us today because we're talking about impact influence today. 7 powerful ways that you can create impact every time you speak so that you leave a lasting impression with your audience. John says your audience is not going to remember everything, but they should remember something. And you should know what it is that you want them to remember. So how can we bring attention? How can we bring emphasis? How can we create impact with the key points that we really want to make an impact with the audience with? That's what we're going to look at in this session. Before we dig into that, though, if you haven't downloaded the companion resources, of course, you can go to maxwellleadership.com/the Speaker's Edge and download the companion resources. And we'd love it if you follow the show, download the episodes, rate and review the episodes. All right, let's dig in then. How can we create an impact when we speak? Well, the first thing that we've got to realize is you can't make an impact with everything. You can't make everything stand out. So we need to choose. We need to choose. The first thing we've got to do is choose what is it that we want to stand out. You can't make an impact with everything. Less is more. That's so true. It really is. Less is more. If you try to emphasize everything, then you end up emphasizing nothing. So everything can't have impact. You've got to choose. You've got to choose. Real simple example of this, I'm sure you've heard it before. If you type a letter out, you fill the page and then you put it all in capitals, which word stands out? None of them, because they're all the same. There's no differentiation. It's all in capitals, and so they all appear the same when you look at it. But if you had one word in capitals, that would immediately draw the eye when you looked at that page. That one word would stand out relative to all the other words around it, because it's different. It's been differentiated. We've decided to give it impact with the reader. So a sentence would still stand out, wouldn't it? But if you put half of the material in capitals, then it wouldn't stand out. So the more you try and emphasize, the less you emphasize the bits that you're trying to emphasize. One word, that will be the only thing that we see. One sentence, we'll read it. But the more you try and emphasize, the less effective it becomes. So the key thing to realize here is things stand out by being different. Things stand out by being different. You can't emphasize everything. It's the same with body language, which is also visual when you think about it. If you're speaking and you're using your hands all the time, like a couple of weeks back we talked about the Italian, affectionately, people say, oh, I'm Italian, I talk with my hands. If we try and emphasize everything with our hands, if we're over gesticulating, then we're not emphasizing everything, we're emphasizing nothing. The more we over gesticulate, the less effective that gesticulation becomes. If we use it very sparingly and we just say, no, listen to this one point, then we can emphasize the things that we're saying. But the more we use it, the less of a positive impact it has, until that impact is reduced to zero. And the more we do it, the bigger the negative impact it has, because it becomes frustrating or it becomes annoying even. So you can't emphasize everything. Don't try and emphasize everything. You have to choose what it is that you want to give impact to. If you're going to put the full force of your presentation behind one point or one big theme, you have to decide what it is. You can't leave it to chance. So the truth of this is, not all of your information is created equally. Some bits are more important than others. They just are. And if they're not, if it is all created equally, then that's going to make for a very dull presentation. It really is. So not all information is created equally. Some bits are more important than others. What are they? What are they? Do you know what they are? You should know what they are. And do you know where they are in your presentation? You should know where they are as well, of course. And the better you know your material, the better you know what you're trying to emphasize and where they are in your presentation, the much more likely you are to give them appropriate emphasis in the mind of your audience. So we can't emphasize everything. Simple example of this is, imagine it's raining over acres of grassland. Those raindrops fall down and they're scattered over acres and acres of land, and it has very little impact, does it? But if you were able to collect those raindrops and channel them all together, put them into maybe into a stream, direct that stream towards a wheel, perhaps on a mill, and the water then turns a giant wheel. Then at the point where the grinding stones meet on the axle of that wheel, there's enormous force there in that particular moment. Enormous force. But if you don't marshal it, if you don't collect it, if you don't focus it and direct it to one specific outcome, then the rain just falls everywhere. So we want to harness the power of our speaking, our communicating in the same way, and we want to direct it towards a specific end, the most important parts of our communication. So less really is more when it comes to influence. I know, I know you want to over-deliver. I know that you want to give them more. I know you want to give them everything that you know. You want to really, really over-deliver in terms of the value that you're adding. The fact is, that's not the way that people's attention works. It's not. It's not the way that impact works. It's not the way that influence works. We have to choose. We have to choose. It can't be everything that we say. Now, the more you speak, obviously, the easier everything gets, but the more you're going to discover great material. You're going to discover some of your things that work really, really well. Some of your stories work really, really well. And so you want to collect those. And if you use something and it works well, if the audience respond well to it, then you want to make a note of that. Keep it and kind of file it somewhere as one of your best bits. And the more you speak, then you'll realize some bits work better than others, and the more of those best bits that you're going to have. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, well, what do you mean best bits, Roddy? What do you mean? My best words? Or what do you mean best bits? Well, words, yes, but stories, your best stories. You have lots of stories. Some are better than others. We talked about this in a previous episode, didn't we? Your best stories you're going to want to keep, and you're going to want to reuse them, and you're going to want them to keep getting better and better. Your best jokes. You don't have to be a funny guy or a funny girl. But if you have something that works, maybe it's a story that you share that makes people laugh. Make a note of that. Keep those. That can be one of your best bits, your best stories, your best jokes, your favorite quotes, the ones that really work for you, the ones that you love to teach, the ones that have had a big impact on you. And so when you share them, they have a big impact on other people. So your favorite quotes, your favorite examples, maybe they're not personal stories, things that you've actually lived out, but maybe they're hypothetical stories that you've made up to explain something. Well, let me give you an example of what I mean. Consider this, imagine this, and you realize that people respond well to it. Keep it, make a note of it. Your favorite metaphors, your favorite statistics or research, icebreakers that you've used, any teaching pieces that you enjoy sharing, any questions that you enjoy asking the audience. It can be as simple as that, a question that you ask. It's very provocative or thought-provoking or insightful maybe. In questions that you're asked and great answers you've then prepared to those questions. All of these things could be your best bit. So as you gradually speak more, make a note. Be a very diligent professional about what are the things that work well. Keep a note of them and file them in a way that you can use them easily in the future. John says that the biggest time waster is looking for things that are lost. So we don't want to lose them. If we discover something that works really, really well, we need to keep it. And we need to keep it ready and shiny so that we can use it again. So filing them somewhere where we can access them. So if it works, that's high value. Keep that. You may be able to reuse it in the future. So keep your best bits, keep them somewhere safe. Every time you speak to a new audience then, you can go to your best bits. I think of a treasure chest of your best bits. So you've got your treasure chest and you keep all your best bits in your treasure chest. And then when you're speaking to a new audience, you go to your treasure chest and you think, is there anything in here that I can use for this particular audience on this particular day, on this particular topic? Can I reuse any of my best bits? Because obviously you know they get the job done. They're your best bits. So you want to look at reusing them if you can. And so over time, you'll have more and more stories. Initially, you'll have nothing in there, of course. But over time, you'll have stories. And the more best bits you collect, the better your best bits will be. They'll rise to the top. So over time, you'll have more stories. That will grow. Over time, you'll have whole presentations, whole keynotes, whole seminars, whole workshops gradually over time. But initially, it's probably just going to be words. It's probably going to be the odd point or sentence or quote. It's going to be, simpler things. So they could be the best bits that you're going to include in your presentation. I asked John about speaking a number of years ago, and I asked him about, do do you know where your best bits are, John? Do you think about those in advance when you're preparing? And he said, oh, yes, Roddy, I know where my aces are. He calls them the aces. I know where the aces are, and I know how I'm going to treat those aces. I know when they're coming up, and my delivery is going to change accordingly. So if you know where they are, then you can change your delivery in order to emphasize your best bits, can't you? To honor them. To honor them. If not all material is created equally, some bits are more important than others, we can honor our material. We can honor our best bits. We can commit to them. We might as well. They're the best chance of us influencing the audience, aren't they? So we might as well commit to them. So do you know where your best bits are, John? Oh yeah, I know where the aces are. And then I can slow down as I approach them. Then I can make sure that the audience really gets them. And really our delivery is what we're talking about today, mainly because your delivery is a great way for you to really make your best bits stand out, to really give your best bits emphasis in the mind of the audience. So to give them really powerful impact, I've got 7 things that you can use, 7 key ways that you can bring out the power of your best bits every single time you speak. Now, before we get to that though, you've heard me talk about the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team before on previous episodes. If you're interested in finding out what it means to be a Maxwell Leadership Certified Team member, if you're interested in being a coach or speaker, a trainer, if you're interested in leadership, career development, to be honest, if you're interested in developing your speaking, it really is a no-brainer. I've been working with John Maxwell since 2010 on the Maxwell method of speaking, and the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team is the best place to go to learn the Maxwell method of speaking. We're fast approaching 60,000 coaches worldwide now. Incredible. 60,000 coaches worldwide in 168 countries or more. So if you're interested in speaking, check it out. No obligation. Just go to maxwellleadership.com/speak. Jump on a call with a program advisor. They'll ask you a few questions. You'll ask them some questions. You'll quickly see if it's a fit. And if it is, you'll be very pleased you made that call. All right, so let's look at these 7 steps then, 7 ways to give emphasis to your best bits. Number 1, you have to know where your best bits are if you're going to honor them, if you're going to give them impact, if you're going to make them stand out. So you have to, number 1, know where your best bits are. You can change your approach if you know where they are. If you're making it up as you go along, then it's so much more difficult to do that, isn't it? In fact, everything gets easier the better you know your material. Everything gets easier the better you know your material. If you know your material well, you know where the best bits are, you know when they're coming up, then you can change your delivery to reflect that. But if you don't, well, you can't hit a target you can't see, can you? You can't hit a target you can't see, so you're not gonna be able to honor them if you don't know where they are. You may go past them and, oh, I missed that. That's not gonna help your audience because they're gonna go past them too. So if you know what you're trying to emphasize, it's much easier to emphasize it. So number 1, you need to know where your best bits are. Then number 2, not just know, but you can slow. You can slow down as you approach your best bits. Not all material is created equally, remember. So we know where it is, then we can slow down as we approach it. When I was talking to John about knowing where his aces are, he said, if I slow down, you know something good is coming. When I slow down, I'm coming up to a good bit. I'm coming up to something you want to write down. Grab your pens, because if I'm slowing down, something good is coming. Get ready. So we can differentiate the way the audience feels as they're approaching the best bits. There's an expectation comes as we slow down, isn't there? As you're approaching your best bit, if you're slowing down, then the audience is kind of thinking, oh, where's this going? You're drawing them in because of the variety in your delivery. You're slowing down as you approach this key bit. So I'll give you a simple example. If I'm talking and I'm racing through some of the less important material, so because it is linked material that joins the different bits, or maybe I'm transitioning from one part to the next, I'm going to speak a little bit quicker because it's less important. I can get through those bits. But as I begin to approach one of the key parts, one of the key messages, one of the key points that I really want to stand out, as I get closer to that key piece, I'm going to slow down. My voice maybe is going to change to reflect the wonder that I have for this great point that I'm going to share with you. And so I slow down, I'm spacing out the words, I'm creating space for the piece that I want you to remember. You might want to write this down. The messenger is more important than the message. the messenger is more important than the message. It is. We don't think it is. I'm not saying the message is not important, but the messenger is more important than the message. Now, because I want that to stand out, and as I slow down as I get to it, it has more emphasis. Out of everything I've just said in the last 5 minutes, probably you're going to remember the messenger is more important than the message. So if we know where our best bits are, then we can slow down as we approach them and make them stand out by creating that difference, making them seem more important and give them more impact. All right, so number 1, you're going to know where your best bits are. Number 2, you're going to slow down as you approach them. And number 3, you're going to linger when you get there. You don't need to rush off. You don't need to race up to your best bit, zing straight past it, carry on going and move on to the next bit because you're trying to, more is more. The more I can pack in, the better. No, less is more. Less is more. You're going to know where they are. You're going to approach them slower, slow down as you get there, and then linger on the topic. Let the audience think about it for a moment. I remember a number of years ago, we were in Vegas and for 1996, 1997 over New Year. And me and some friends decided that we were going to take a trip. We were going to rent a car and we were going to drive to the Grand Canyon. So we drove, we were excited on the way. It was 5 hours. It's very hot in Vegas where we were, but we're driving all the way to the Grand Canyon. We get there 5 hours later, we park, we get out the car, and the view is absolutely breathtaking. It was unbelievable. I'd never seen anything like it before. Really, really breathtaking. But it was breathtaking for another reason. We were 2 miles up. We were dressed in shorts and t-shirts. It was freezing. It was absolutely freezing. It was so cold that immediately you get out of the car, it's like, oh my goodness. And you feel like you've got to take a couple of photos and you walk around. Within 5 minutes, we were back in the car. It was just too cold to stay outside. And then we're like, should we go back? And yeah, I think we have to. And so we turned around and we drove 5 hours back again. So we drove all the way to get there, got out the car for a few minutes and then got back in and drove all the way back again. We didn't linger. So that's not the type of impression we want with our best bits. We don't want to race up to them and race off again. We want them to soak in a little bit. We want them to soak in. So we want to take our time maybe. Now, I'm not talking about wasting your audience's time. I'm not talking about just stopping and saying nothing for no reason. Not just weird, random space. No, we're talking about space to think, space to consider, space to let it sink in, but not space just to get bored and drift off and start thinking about something else. John says the audience will tell you how long you should pause. So if we can keep a mind on that, and we'll come back to this later because it's a little more advanced. You're thinking about what you're going to say. Just to be aware of the audience is another step. But many of you will be able to do that. Just being aware of the audience, you can begin to get that feedback, and the audience will tell you when you can move on. So we don't want to stay so long they get bored, but we do want to stay long enough for them to think about what we've said and for it to sink in, for it to really sink in. So number 1, we've got to know where our best bits are. Then we can slow down. Then we can linger. Then number 4, we can repeat our best bits. Daniel Pink said years ago, there's 3 keys to effective communication: levity, brevity, and repetition. Let me say that again. Levity, brevity, and repetition. He brought the house down when you hear it. It's a great clip. You can find it on YouTube. But it's true, isn't it? Levity, brevity, and repetition. Repetition is a key to learning. Repetition is the mother of skill. So a great way to emphasize something that we really want to give impact to for the audience is through repetition. Repetition very often is how we learn, isn't it? So just like I said there, the key to effective communication is levity, brevity, repetition. Let me say that again. Levity, brevity, repetition. So if we know where our best bits are, we can maybe choose to repeat them, to give them that emphasis. So with key lines, it could just be simple repetition. For a longer point that you want to establish, the Dale Carnegie kind of school of influence here was tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So you kind of set it up, then you tell them, then you summarize what you said. Tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you've told them. Now, I interviewed Les Brown on stage at an international Maxwell certification conference in 2015, and he was talking about this, and he says, on the one hand, I understand that at a simple level, but if you're a professional speaker on another level, that's insulting for the audience. We can do better than that. We can do better than that. John says you need repetition for learning, but it needs to be creative so that it's not boring. Because if you tell them what you're going to tell them, they're only half concentrating when you tell them. And by the time you tell them what you told them, they're completely thinking about something else. Because there's no expectation, no need to know what happens next. They're not hanging on your every word because they know what's coming. So it is a very valid training approach, but creative repetition for bigger ideas, I think, works much better. So repetition to really reinforce ideas works very, very well. All right, so we need to know so we can go slow, so we can linger, so we can repeat. Number 5, we can use examples to emphasize the points that we're trying to make. And probably the easiest thing for me to do here is to give you an example I'm trying to make. So a number of years ago, I used to play table tennis. I was self-taught, and then I sat down with a coach one day, and the coach said, "You've got some bad habits. We need to change the way that you do your forehand." And I said, "I can't. This is the way I do it." He said, "Of course you can. You learned to do it like that. And you can unlearn that, and you can learn to do it a different way if you want to. Look at these people playing." And he showed me what they were doing, and I could see that they were getting the results that I wanted to do. So I was all in. I'm on board. Let's do it. So I had this new insight for what I needed to change in my game. What did that actually do for my table tennis game when I was playing table tennis? In the heat of battle, in the middle of a game, in the middle of a match. What did it do? Nothing. Nothing at all. Because it was just the idea of change. It wasn't change itself. Insight is not change. So many people get mixed up with this. Insight is not change. Insight is potentially the beginning of change. Insight is potentially the doorway to change. Change is on the other side of insight. It's not insight itself. Change is a process, isn't it? Not an event. We can get excited from the event, but the change comes from the process. So that's a simple example about playing table tennis and trying to change my table tennis forehand, which emphasizes this point that insight is not change. Change is a process. Change is a process. So I'm not just saying the words, I'm giving you a simple example so that it gives it a little bit more prominence, makes you think about it in a slightly different way. It gives you an example to follow as well. So that's a true personal story. Personal stories work very well as examples. Other people's stories, as we talked about in a previous episode, work well. Hypothetical stories work well too. Public domain stories, parables. There's all kinds of different examples that you can use. Probably personal stories are going to be your best bet when you find them, although they do take a little longer to find good ones and shape them. But when you do, they have the most impact of all. So number 5, examples can work very, very well. Number 6 then is emotion. Emotion is a very powerful anchor, isn't it? Emotion is very powerful. If we experience something and it's linked with emotion, we're much more likely to remember it. In fact, our mind thinks this is something that's important because we experience a lot of things every day, don't we? We think a lot of things every day. We take in a great deal of sensory information every single day, and most of it's not that interesting. But the bits that are linked to emotions, whether very positive or very negative, they tend to be remembered because we're much more likely to want to access that data associated to that particular experience in the future. If it's something very, very enjoyable, we might want to repeat it. If it's something very, very scary, we might want to avoid it. So you can see emotion can be like a highlighter pen on some of our experiences, can't it? Emotions like what? Fear, anger, embarrassment, something very shocking, or pride, guilt, shame, humor. All of these different emotions can really help highlight different experiences so that we're much more likely to be able to go back to them and learn anything from them that we experienced at the time. So humor can work very, very well, and it can really anchor certain experiences, and it's easier for us to use than trying to get the audience to feel guilty or ashamed or embarrassed. Although if it's our embarrassment or our guilt or our shame, that can work well too. I'll give you a simple example of this, one that I often use with new audiences. Me and Susan went to Starbucks. Susan's my wife. If you don't know, we went to Starbucks. We're standing in the line, and the person in front of us was shouting at the barista saying, "That's cold, I'm not drinking that, and that's not even my drink," and pushed it over and stormed off. And Susan looked at this barista and she said, "I'm so sorry about that." The barista said, "No, it's fine." She said, "It's not fine. You do such a great job working so hard to serve people, and you shouldn't have to put up with idiots like that." And the barista said, "No, it's fine. It's my mum." Oh, okay. So we went out in the car afterwards and we're like straight out, and I couldn't stop laughing, and Susan wasn't like annoyed, and she's like, so what? I'd rather stand up for the little person and risk making a fool of myself than just leave them, on their own and say nothing. I can't do that. That's a great point, isn't it? It's a great point. So a humor and an example combined together works even better. Humor combined with an example and then a point works best of all. All right, so number one, we need to know where best bits are. Number two, we need to slow down as we approach. Number three, we want to linger there so that they've got time to think about the best bits and not just rush off. We can repeat key phrases, sentences, or key teaching points. That's a great way to emphasize them. We can use examples, we can use emotion, and then number seven, finally, we can use imagery or visuals. See, if I share a quote with you by JFK, there are risks and costs to any plan of action, but they're far less than the long-range risks and costs of comfortable inaction. If I share that quote with you, it's a great quote. I think it's very powerful, but you'll be much more likely to remember that if you saw it on the screen behind me. If my PowerPoint had that quote, and while I was saying it, the quote was appearing, so you could see it and read it as you were hearing it, as you could see me teaching it, it would be much more powerful. It would have more impact. You hearing it is one thing. It's a great quote, but it's quite a lot there to take in. There are risks and costs to any plan of action, but they are far less than the long-range risks and costs of comfortable inaction. So it's a great quote, but it's a lot easier to take in. It has a lot more impact if you can see it and read it as you're hearing it. So it's a lot more impactful if you can see the quote and you can read it as you hear it. It's going to have more impact. Using our body language can also really help to emphasize things, can't we? So rather than seeing visuals, the visual impact of somebody acting out or using their hands to emphasize certain points gives them more emphasis, makes them more important. So we can use our body language, our facial expressions to reinforce our message. We can use visuals on a PowerPoint, of course, or we could just create imagery in the imagination. That can be very powerful too. All of these things can really help emphasize your message. So in this session then, we've looked at how you can emphasize the key parts of your presentation. Remember, the goal is not for you to just say it. The goal is for you to say it so that they get it. The key is them getting it, not you saying it. And so you can't emphasize everything or they won't get everything. You need to choose, you need to pick, you need to decide what it is you're going to emphasize. So that's going to be your best bits. When you've decided what your best bits are, then you can choose how you're going to emphasize them. And of course, we looked at 7 different ways that you can do that. Number 1, know where your best bits are. Number 2, slow down as you approach your best bits. Number 3, linger around your best bits to give them a chance to sink in. Number 4, you can repeat some of your best bits so the audience are more likely to remember them. Number 5, use examples to bring your best bits to life. Number 6, use emotion. Make us feel something so we're more likely to remember them. And number 7, use visuals or imagery to really give them extra impact. That's it for this week. Don't forget to download our companion resources. As I said, you can go to maxwellleadership.com/The Speaker's Edge. Communication really is one of the most important skills that you can develop. It is a learnable skill. So the more time you spend trying to learn it, the more time you spend trying to get better at your communication, the more likely you are to really master your message. Then you can inspire your audience every single time you speak. Thanks for listening today. I appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Lots of love. Bye-bye. God bless.